Welcome to Empyrion Galactic Survival Alpha 10, and I thought I'd start this final video in the series with a view out from the front of my base. It's quite a spectacular view. I'm really happy with this base, and I probably would have gone on and put railings around here as well to put a bit of a safety aspect on here. And what I want to do in this video is not talk about the Alpha 10.5 update, but really wind this series up. I really hate leaving a Let's Play just hanging in the end, so if someone follows it through and gets here and they wonder what happened. Well, the reason this Let's Play is coming to the end is 10.5's out. Now, I did think very carefully about it because I was in two minds, but a couple of you have put comments in saying that you're going to restart again. And to be honest, I think it makes sense because in the new update, there are going to be space-based POIs which are going to be owned by Polaris, so we may have to have a slightly different style in the next playthrough. I'm also interested in the Talon attacks, plus there's lots of graphical and other enhancements which have come through, and I'm not too sure that if I carried on with this Let's Play whether they'd be picked up, because obviously a lot of it is regenerated when you start a new playthrough. So that's the reason for starting a new playthrough. What I can say is there's going to be a slightly different approach than, say, this series, because this series was very much about learning base attacks, building a couple of different bases, trying out the defenses. And what I can say is that building on top of a mountain is very successful, but in the next part we will probably build a fortress and see how well we can defend that. And in the case of base defenses, when I returned with my capital vessel to prepare for going up into space, if you watched the previous video, there was actually a base attack that came in here, and the troop ship actually dropped some troops there. The troop ship was able to get in and land and drop some troops, and I actually saw the troops coming up here, and it looked very much like they were trying to make a hack attack, but luckily my minigun turrets up here literally blew them away, and then which was really good because the attack came so quickly. I was still trying to get around here with my SV to support the attack, but it did work, and I did. The guns did successfully take out a 4-man patrol down here, so that was really cool. So what am I going to do in the rest of this video? Well, what I want to do is just give you a little bit of a run round of the base, and eventually we'll go up and check out the capital vessel. You can see I've made a couple of additions to that in preparation to go out into space. And what can I say? I'm generally happy with this base. I think I would have liked to have put maybe some railings in down here or something like that, make it look a bit more, well, you could say realistic is probably the correct term. Because I mean, this is one of my downsides when I build bases and ships. I tend to be a very functional person by nature. You know, I'm not into the, how can you say, the decorative side of life, and I think it's worked very well. I mean, down in here, we'll go top from bottom just to give you a bit of a tour and just to show you. One thing I will say is if I come up here and show you this top farm, I think this was probably a bit over the top. I could have got away with maybe just 2 sets of 9 up here, because you can see I've got spaces here which I've never really filled in, and I'm getting more than enough food from this area to keep me going. And of course these would be drawing power when they're not required. If I go down another floor, just to emphasize, if I go down into the basement first, I think this basement area worked very well as well with our deconstructor over here, fuel tanks, so we had space there, and of course through here we've got the furnace, which to me, I'm not really convinced of the benefits of using furnaces unless you're going to be really into mining extensively. And the other thing I also did, if any of you watched the previous series where I was picking up all sorts of bits and pieces from the crash ship and from the unknown alien artifact, what I did is I fed it all into the deconstructor. Just to give you a bit of an oversight of that, this you can see is I've actually transferred it up to the capital vessel, and you can see I've got 26 flux coils, 11 oscillators, a big pile of zirconium, and was it Esterum, and I've got that. And the other thing I also found was that when returning to my base is I had a big pile of cobalt ingots which I didn't bring with me, so my cobalt shortage was solved simply by coming back to my base. And again, you can see this farming area here worked very well, but you can see I never really finished it off and fully populated it. So in some ways this farming area with, say, the 2 sets of 9-ups up on the floor above would have been more than enough to get everything working. And of course, right on the top, you'd have had living accommodation. And then coming out here, this base defense worked very well. And we're just going to go across and get to the capital vessel. I don't want this video to be too long. It's just literally, I just want to wind everything up so that you're not left hanging and wondering what craziness I've been up to. I'm just going to jump into here. If I get up to about the midsection, that means I should be able to give you a little bit of a tour of the changes I made after returning to the base. And what I've actually done is I've kind of worked a little bit on some of the blocks. It's still not perfect. I'm still kind of trying to think of a way I can shape that in, but at the same time I actually quite like this angular look rather than the everything nice and smoothed and curved in. You like that? I mean, the triangle within that groove there kind of gives a go faster look to the ship. And what I've done is I put some sentry guns along here to provide side defense. And then what I've put on the front here, we got a minigun turret on each side and a cannon on the top. And then I've literally striped the side of the ship in. I know the colours are garish and it may not suit the sensibilities of a lot of people, but my one eccentricity, it does tend to be colour, very bright colours. And I think somebody posted a comment said I'm locked in the 70s, and I must admit I do like the 70s look. And you can see the ship actually comes in here, it's quite well. I've finished off blending in down here, and again this kind of thrust bit down with the bit underneath, I think it just fits quite well, though I think I've made a bit of a mistake there with that block. But sometimes it can be quite difficult just to shape this stuff in. And I did consider putting sentry guns down here, but in the end what I did is opted for 2 up underneath the area there, which I think would be more than adequate if we were flying in against a POI and there was patrols. The 2 sentry guns there, coupled with the minigun turrets there, would be really good. And the other thing also with these striped areas here, and the reason this comes out, is that I would, if I needed more side thrusters, I'd have put some side thrusters there, and possibly in here as well, inside the nacelle, above or below. Maybe put a couple of thruster there and a thruster there. And again, you've got the sentry guns there. So all in all, things are working pretty well. I'm quite happy with this build actually. It's probably one of the better builds I've ever done. I wouldn't say it's perfect, and it's still a bit blocky, but I feel I'm getting there, if that makes sense. And then just to show you the advanced constructor, just to show you that you come down here now, you can see we could build this thruster, although this is really big. This is 3x6. I mean, a couple of those 2x2x4 on the back would really give me a lot of push for this ship. And that would probably be an option that if I was taking the ship forward and taking it into space serious, because say this is a pretty heavy looking ship, and I think probably that's about it for the overview. And I think this is probably a fantastic view to finish the series up with. Look at that. I mean, it's difficult to explain, especially if any of you didn't play Empyrion back when it first came out. The enhancements to the graphics in this game have been absolutely fantastic. I mean, I'll be the first to admit, when I first played Empyrion, which was quite some time ago, I looked at the graphics and I thought, oh, this is terrible. I'm not going to be able to put up with this. I mean, it was all very pixelated, and like the mountains in the distance in this view, you couldn't see until you flew very close to them. And you get the sheer difference that how this game has progressed over the various cycles has been phenomenal. I'd like to say how fantastic the devs have been in bringing this game forward and developing it. And I think that's probably a good lead into a quick overview of 10.5. Now, 10.5 is an interesting update because it doesn't actually introduce anything that's really new and functional to the game. What it does is it introduces some features which in some ways are building on the Alpha 10 release, like the Talon base attacks, but at the same time laying a foundation for a new faction, because the space-based POIs in the 10.5 update will be owned by Polaris, which is going to introduce a new dimension, because I'll probably end up attacking those bases. So we may end up upsetting the Polaris. And I really like the idea that maybe when we get up into space, there will be ships up there which we will have to fight and defend against. Because at the moment you go up into space, unless you really aggravate somebody, you don't really get into much trouble. So it'd be really nice to have some space combat in the game against a more aggressive pirate faction. So you probably, in a way, the pirates will be a spaceborne version of the Xerax, and that's the parts of the release which are going to shape my next Let's Play. So in the next playthrough, the focus will be slightly different from this Let's Play, where I was concentrating very much on learning about base defense. In the next playthrough, the focus will be very much on getting up and running very quickly, building one base, probably a fortress base, so that we can try out the base defenses from there, and then getting an SV or a capital vessel and getting off the starter planet relatively quickly. So it won't be 40 parts to get to a capital vessel. I'd like to get up into space and checking out those space-based POIs as quickly as possible. And probably another feature of the upcoming Let's Play will be probably being a bit more aggressive, upsetting people, because I certainly would like to upset the Talon, because I'm going to be quite interesting to see if a combination attack of the Talon and Xerax, because the Talon won't actually attack your base, but if they're nearby they switch off the power. So I wonder whether the Talon working with the Xerax would actually cause your base to fail, because if you've got no power, you've got no weapons. That means the Xerax can get a nice clean run in on a base attack. So that's something else I may want to explore. Anyway, I'm kind of getting a long way away from this series, so I think this is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you enjoyed this video, and more importantly, hope you enjoyed the series, and hope you will join me when the new series starts, which will probably be in a few days' time. So until then, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.